Social enterprise has been described as modern society's secret developmental weapon. On this episode, the Talk TV crew journey to the heartland of Igbo-Ilerin, a very rural community comprising of over 300 villages on the outskirts of Ibadan, southwest Nigeria, to engage with a social entrepreneur who a little over 30 years ago founded a social enterprise and successfully grew it from a one-bookshelf library to the world's third largest African-focused library. Welcome, visionary, founder, executive director, African Heritage Research Library and Cultural Center, Adepo Village, Nigeria, Dr. Bayo Adebowale. Dr. Adebayo Adebowale, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, what instigated this project?
Well, this project has the vision and the mission to educate all Africans on the continent and all Africans in the diaspora. We want to debunk the age-old Hollywood conception that Africans are second-rate citizens of the world. They live on trees. All this should be corrected once and for all. And so we told ourselves when we established this African Heritage Research Library and Cultural Center that we are going to educate and re-educate all Africans. Don't be surprised that Africans don't even know they are Africa.
They don't even know they are Africa.
No, they don't even know they are Africa, not to talk of the diaspora.
I think I will agree with you because I've met so many Africans who don't even understand the essence of and substance of who they are as Africans.
Yeah.
But we'll come into all those nitty-gritty later on. But first I want to establish this vision is 30 years old.
Yes.
And it started, I gathered, and please correct me if I'm wrong, while you were still a lecturer at Larangun.
Yes.
College of Education. College of Education, yes. Larangun, back in the 80s. At that time, you were a lecturer who was busy with his own do's and don'ts, naturally.
Yeah.
How did you summon the courage to pursue the vision, the idea?
Well, I stumbled on a particular article written by a so-called foreign expert
on Africa.
On Africa. You know, disparaging the entire continent.
And probably innocently or ignorantly done.
Oh yes, you know. Well, he said a number of things which tickled my fancy, and which galvanized me into saying that something must be done to begin to project Africa the correct way. You know, who can project us?
Better than ourselves.
Yes, better than ourselves. So, a lot of things had gone, especially in the Western world, about Africa. You know, so I stumbled on that article, and I told myself that, well, we should do something about this man. You know,
and his types.
Yes, all over the world.
Yeah.
To float something that will begin to project Africa in the true sense. You know, so we said we will establish a library, an Africana library, not just only a library, an Africana library, that will begin to project Africa the way it should be projected, the correct way, as opposed to the views of the Western so-called scholars.
Scholars and researchers.
Yes, and researchers.
Who come in and spend a few months
and then begin to claim authority over our Africa. So we said, okay, this will be our vision and mission. We will tell the whole world the true picture, let them see the true picture of Africa. Then we will begin to educate ourselves too, because don't forget,
Yes,
even
sir.
we Africans too are abusers of our culture.
I agree.
And we don't, if we are abusers of our culture, how can we interpret our culture and tradition, our language, to the outside world? So we set up this library to cater for the educational development of students, archivists, documentalists, researchers all over the world. Then we said this library also will cater for the social life, the socio-cultural perspective of Africans in the rural community. The rural community people will be brought into the picture. They will be carried along, and they will be educated and enlightened about their Africa.
Okay.
So they will now begin to learn about the culture of their people and appreciate that culture.
That culture.
Because we don't appreciate it.
I agree. And I think it's a noble objective. But I'm still curious to know the process between the time the idea was conceived and the time it was executed. I do know that Ilarangun is very far away from this present location.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume that the library started from a different physical location, or did it start from this very location?
No, it started, the idea came to us from Ilarangun.
Yes.
That's where I stumbled on the article I was telling you about.
That annoyed you so much?
Yes, that pushed me to say, let's do something. This, the writer of the article may, after all, be correct in some way. So the onus is on us now to begin to enlighten the whole world about our Africa. Let them see Africa in its proper perspective. And so that's when it occurred to me at Ilarangun. I heard all the time. Well, it is it's God's doing, I would say, because wherever you may be, an idea can occur to you anytime,
True.
anywhere.
True.
And so that idea occurred at Ila. And
the library was set up initially at Ila?
At Ila, that was way back in 1988.
Wow.
Specifically March 1988.
True.
The idea came to us and we said, let's set up a library.
Then you started to assemble write-ups,
Yes.
research materials, scholarly.
I started with the collection of my own personal books I used in colleges and universities, books I stumbled on in public places. I assembled them, about 500 books specifically. I said, okay.
That is African Center.
Yes, that is African Center. Like African literature books, like African traditional religion books.
African music and performance. But I've moved around the library.
You've seen all these.
I saw a number of books on African performance, literary, rituals, dance, and so on and so forth.
So 500 books altogether. And I told myself, the library has started today. With this collection, with these 500 books, we have started a giant step towards ensuring a monument to be built for African studies.
This is the stuff that legends are made of, I want to say, because every day people stumble on ideas, yet they don't do anything about it. I do know, as a student of African literature myself, that there are many people out there, myself inclusive, who at one time or the other were annoyed at some of these writings, but we never did anything about it. And that's why I want to applaud your courage. I want to applaud your conscientiousness to pursue the decision that you took way back 30 years ago. And 30 years after, you're still consistently committed to that vision. I say kudos to you, sir.
Thank you very much
for that. Now, when you got to this location, I mean, even today, it's still a rural community in every sense of the word. Why choose a rural community rather than the urban center where the people who are your primary targets reside?
Well, I want to tell you that it is in the rural community that you have the cream of the African people
who are still authentic.
Yes,
Unadulterated.
That's where they are living.
Okay.
And in the rural community, the beauty of the countryside and the serenity of the environment is also there as an important factor to establishing a library, a research center of this type.
And a cultural center.
Yes, there is no undue distraction.
Okay.
Like you have in town, the hustle bustle of the town will put you off. But here in the village, the serenity, the beauty, you are mixing with nature. And if you are a serious researcher, you have a field day doing your work in a peaceful environment like this.
Okay.
That's not the only reason.
Okay.
The rural community people also, who have been neglected for a long time in the
scheme of things.
Yes, in scheme of things, anywhere. We told ourselves that these are not secondary citizen people. We have to carry them along in whatever we do. So as we educate, as we enlighten those in the urban centers, the rural community people also deserve to be enlightened, to be educated, to be carried along. And mind you, in rural community areas, you have professors in their own right there. When you talk of cultural development of the people.
And even technology. Because while we were coming, we saw people who understand the technology and dynamics of making gari. Those who
make along the roads,
black soap,
by the roadside.
Those who make palm oil.
Yes,
and we saw all these
we have them in plenty here.
And for me, those are the professors in those areas.
I'm telling you, they are. And they talk about culture. They will lecture you, let you know a lot about the culture. And when the so-called elites want to exhibit the culture of the people, they run to the villages and hamlets to hire practitioners. In villages and hamlets, you have acrobats, you have rara chanters, you have dancers, singers. They are all
poets.
Around. And these are the people you gather to the, what do you call it, the stadium.
Yeah, to perform.
During occasions, to perform. You sit down, you see them perform. Here in...
So the attraction for siting the center in a rural setting like this is the quantum of knowledge and practices, unadulterated, authentic African traditional practices that one would find readily available here.
I tell you.
It's not in any way orchestrated, it's already there, it's their everyday lifestyle. Fantastic.
We have succeeded in making library services relevant to the grassroots people. This is something very novel, something unique, something we are applauded for. Making library services relevant to the grassroots people. We take care of them, they come, they register free of charge. We don't take a kobo from them. Palm wine tappers, basket weavers, farmers, drummers, all of them are here as our registered members.
Poets.
And we don't, we don't. I'm talking about rural community people. But they are oral poets, they are here.
Oral poets.
They are all here.
Wow.
So we don't take a cover from them.
Coming up. When people come in here, there are lots of things that they will take away which will be good value for their time coming. How do you get funding? Because it's not going to be cheap. If I come in here, what kind of experience will I go away with? What are the facilities available here? And what will they give to me by way of memorable memory?
Okay, then this village, as small as it is a village of many parts. When you come here, you have the opportunity to see our Music of Africa Auditorium, where we collect works of artists and musicians on the around the country and in the continent and the diaspora. So in our little room there, you find we have about 10,000 works of musicians.
10,000.
10,000 works of musicians collected inside our music auditorium there.
African-centered,
yes,
Africanist musicians.
Yes, you get complete works of musicians like Ebenezer Obey, like Sani Ade, like Victor Olaiya, like Jones of the olden days, like Jim Rex Lawson. And then outside of Nigeria, you go to the diaspora, the works of Michael Jackson, the work of Jim Reeves, and the rest. In the Caribbean, you have the works of Caribbean musicians represented there also. Miriam Makeba is also featured.
Mama Africa.
Yes, Mama Africa.
And I bet Fela Nicola Poputi.
Yeah, of course, that takes a central position there. And the old musicians you may have forgotten have been resuscitated through their works. Yeah, like people like, for instance, Ayinde Bakari.
Ayinde Bakari.
For instance, yes, King Kenny Tones, like Akintola, Idowu Sound. All of these have been brought back, and their works are there.
Properly accounted.
Yes, as a matter of fact, when Tunji Ilana came visiting us, he was surprised to see his work, Unlimited Liability, which he collaborated with Soyinka to produce.
In 1982.
Yes, he saw it and he confessed that he had been looking for that record all over London. He got the record here and he was surprised.
I bet you will quickly copy it.
So
the owner of the work himself does not even have a copy until he
he does not even have a copy. Another example of that is Idowu Sound asking us, requesting us to give him a copy of the song he sang for Thunder Balogun in the
early 70s.
Yes, in the 60s.
60s.
They sang. I got it.
That's like 50 years plus.
Of course. So these are some of the things you have to take away. Apart from music of Africa Auditorium, you also come in contact with our Anyagalu African Talking Drum Museum.
I experienced that when I came today.
Yes, we were
welcomed with talking drums when the crew arrived.
The talking drum, you know, and we have a large collection. Our intention on that is to station a practitioner in front of the African Talking Drum Museum, who will be welcoming visitors and who will be teaching visitors how to dance to the rhythm of the talking drum, the bata, teaching them, especially those our friends from overseas.
When people come in here, there are lots of things that they will take away which will be good value for their time coming. How do you get funding? Because it's not going to be cheap to keep the center running.
That's $1 million question. Funding has constituted problems.
It's a challenge.
Yes, for NGOs all over the world.
True.
Despite the fact that I've highlighted our achievements to you, we still have a number of problems facing us. You know,
what some of those
you asked whether something had discouraged us, wanting us to pack everything up. Now, the condition of the road is one issue that has been dodging us ever since. We have made several appeals to the local government, the state government, to help us rehabilitate the road, the 10-kilometer road from Olorunda to the center here at Adeyepo. So that's one problem we are facing, and if there's free passage, people will be more interested in coming here.
Yes.
So then, of course, electricity is another one.
Electricity. I saw some electrification projects.
Yes, it's abandoned now.
It's been abandoned.
It's been abandoned now. Or it was then put up under rural electrification scheme of the federal government. but suddenly the poles are there, the wires are there, but the other, they refuse to connect. So
the transformers are there also.
So what we rely on here is transformers to.
So how do you power the center when visitors come?
Yes, we have our generators, small generators.
And I also saw that one of the buildings has a solar energy.
Yes, of course it has. This one has.
Okay.
And these are things they can replicate for the other
centers. If there is adequate funding.
Yes, if there is
adequate funding.
If there is adequate funding. So these are the things that we need. The security is all right. No, we have.
I was going to ask you.
Yes.
What about security issues?
But
that would be the number one concern of the average person.
Oh yes, of people. Now we have the Hunters Union. Very, very powerful
hunters.
Yes. Day and night watch over this. As we are talking, they are watching.
Really? Really?
They won't see them.
I thought it's only CCTV that watches you without being seen.
Akogun has gone. Akogun was sitting down there watching you, and watching us.
Really?
That's the head hunter.
Of the hunters?
Yes, of the hunters.
Wow.
So that's that.
So security is guaranteed?
It's guaranteed. We are in collaboration with the police station around here.
Okay.
And they come on parade. They do their parade, random parade to ensure that security is maintained.
Wow.
Yeah. But our chief security officer is God Almighty himself.
I like that. I like that. And that's where wisdom is. On our way here, you pointed at a school.
Yes.
Where you said that's where I had my primary school.
Yes.
And I was fascinated. And then I saw, okay, the building has collapsed, so a new one has been built. But there's something I saw there that I would want to talk about. I mustn't let you go unless I talk about it. I saw a clock. It's not a clock in the sense of it, agogo.
Yes.
Because way back, now we ring bells in school, but way back, as some of us learned while we were growing up as toddlers, what we had for churches and for schools were all these giant metals that are, you hit them hard. And when you hit them hard, the sound reverberates across communities, because back in those days, we were talking about tens of kilometers. That's where pupils come from.
The catchment area.
The catchment area. And I saw one of them again. And you were telling me that that same bell I saw was the one that was rang for you when you were in primary school.
Yes.
How old is that bell now?
I'm telling you that bell must be nothing less than 100 years old.
Wow. Because I know that if it was rang for you in primary school, it must be nothing less than 60
yes,
years
it's
now.
about 100 if you...
And it's still standing on the same tree?
On the same tree. And what you used to beat it is still there.
It's still there.
Nobody is taking it away. That's a bell which used to constitute fear. Instill fear in all of us in those days.
As people?
Yes. It will be. They will ring it 2 times.
Okay.
When they give you the first ring, wa, je, gba, wa. My mother will wake me up and say, that is the first. No. You should hurry. If you don't want to be properly caned and disciplined, you should. Mr. Adelusi is waiting for you. Don't. So before the second bell will ring, we will all be there.
So you have grace between the first bell and the second bell.
And 30 minutes.
So you have to speed.
So speed, whatever you are doing.
Once they ring the second one,
even if it's involved that you will not finish
it.
It's one jegba.
I'm sure the person that rings it didn't have one jegba in mind.
but that is the interpretation
that pupils gave it.
That we gave.
And for you to still remember so vividly and nostalgically shows how well it sank into your spirit at the time. But I'm fascinated because you were talking about security. When I saw the bell and I said, oh, how old is this bell? And you said it's over 100. I got down to look at it. The cameraman also takes some shots of it, which I think the editors will show us. But I saw the gong, the metal that is used to beat it,
Still
hanging
there.
on a tree. And it's just there. Then I was telling the crew members that if this metal was hanging on this tree, unguarded, without any security in the city, I bet it won't last for 2 hours before somebody will take it.
Yeah, not here.
Not here.
You see that bell? I paid homage to that bell you saw in some of my writings. And there's a book, Lonely Days, which
I've read.
Yes, I pay special tribute to the bell. Wajegba bell.
So that's the bell.
That's the same bell. And I have succeeded in using the Kufi St. Andrews area as the location for my stories. They made a very strong impact on me as a writer.
Wow.
I know every inch of the soil around that place. I have talked about Mr. Delucy in my writings. And the Widow's Road in front of the bell there.
Wow.
So everything just will be coming to my brain afresh, as if it happened only yesterday. That's such
I will not wrap up the interview unless I also engage with the chief librarian of the library of the center, whom will be joining us on set.
Okay.
Right after this break. Don't you go anywhere. Coming up. 10,000 collection is no mean feat. Many radio stations around don't even have up to 35,000 collection of music. Yet the center can boast of a minimum of 10,000 collection. How did you make that happen? All right, you're welcome back, and we're still at the African Heritage Research and Cultural Center in the rural setting of Adeyepo in Oyo State, Southwest Nigeria. And we're still speaking with the visionaire, Dr. Bayo Adebowale. However, we've been joined by the Chief Librarian of the Center, who has been Chief Librarian of the Center since inception, Iyafin Yeye Akinlemale Funua Olade Iyami Ekabo. You're welcome to the program. Now, I am curious to know, you originally came from California in the United States of America, and you've been here for more than 3-4 decades. What has kept you here?
You mean at the center? We're talking about center.
No, let's start in Nigeria.
In Africa.
In Africa, because Akinlemale is a Swahili name, so I want to believe that you've been around Africa a bit.
No, I haven't been, but story.
Oh, okay. Which we will have some time later on to talk about outside this setting. What has kept you in Nigeria for 3-4 decades?
Well, actually, the only reason why I came to Nigeria is because when I was 11 years old, I said my children must never grow up in America because of the racism.
Okay.
So I was only, since I was 11, I was looking for where. By the time I was 19, I got to Harlem, which is a big black community ghetto combination.
In New York.
In New York. So they had tables on the street. They sell things from tables. There was one table for Yoruba temple.
Really?
I asked them, Yoruba temple. They said Yoruba is the best language and the best culture in the world. I said, I want my children to have the best language and the best culture in the world. That is where I will take my children, and they will grow up and they won't be slaves in America. So I came specifically to make sure my children were not slaves in America. And they told me Yoruba is the best. I wanted them to have the language and the culture.
Wow.
And I made sure that since they can't speak English in the house, they're speaking Yoruba from the time they're small. And they're real Yoruba girls.
Wow. So that was what instigated your
that's the whole thing.
emigration out of America to Africa. And when you came, I reckon that you were excited at what you saw and experienced, and you decided to stay back.
No, I have to stay. Nobody can leave Ile Satani and not love Africa. I can't go back.
Wow.
And Yoruba land, it's wonderful. I mean, I had no problem in Yoruba land.
Wow.
The Yorubas took care of me. They made sure my Adebwale and his family made sure my children are Yoruba Gongo.
Yoruba Gongo.
They are not Black Americans again. They are Yorubas, and they treat me like Yami, and they take care of me in my old age because I say Yoruba. So he and his family trained them, because I can't teach them to be Yoruba. But people like him, beginning with him and his family and all the other Yorubas, they raised my children to be Yoruba Pombele.
Authentic Yoruba Pombele. I was going to say authentic Yoruba people, but Yoruba Pombele is much more apt for it.
One thing she should say also is that the children are also committed to the Yoruba culture and language.
Wow.
It will interest you to know that Tolu, BC, all passed their Yoruba exams in WAEC with A grade.
A grade.
Yes.
Wow. This is quite inspiring. I mean, considering that many of our Yoruba folks want to emigrate to the United States. But we'll talk about that some other day. We're here to talk about the Africa Heritage Research Cultural Center, which you've been chief librarian of for 30 years, since inception, I must add. When Dr. Adebowale called you back in 1988 to say, oh, I have this vision and I want you to manage and preside over the affairs of the library, did you think you were going to be involved for this long?
Look, the way Africa is, the way Yoruba land is, because I would say Yoruba land, because I haven't been anywhere else. I know this forever. What is it? We have the assignment. God gave him the assignment to establish this African Studies Library.
Okay.
So I knew that God is calling me to support and join him to establish it. And so I forever now.
Lai, Titi Ayiraye, it's forever. Now, I've been speaking with Doctor, and he's told me so much about the library. I mean, good enough, I also took a tour around before we came on set, and I was inspired by a lot of things. But I was particularly innovated by the fact that you're not just keeping a collection of publications that are Afro-centered or Afri-centered, but you also have performances and music of different genres domiciled and archived here. How did that happen? 10,000 collection is no mean feat. Many radio stations around don't even have up to 3,000-5,000 collection of music. Yet the center can boast of a minimum of 10,000 collection. How did you make that happen?
Well, you know, Adebowale has told you. It's his vision, and he made it possible. And he contacted the right places. And initially we had people donating 3 copies, publishers abroad, and supporters. We had more donation of materials than anything from abroad and from local. And all his friends, they write books and they give him, and he sacrificed his income for the library. So those are the factors that Adebowale was committed, and he made sure that everything he has, he commits to that project, which is God's assignment for him.
Now, the library started in a town, a rustic town, and moved into a very, very rural area. Because even by today's parlance, this is still a rural area. Yes. How was that transition for you?
Well, actually, I've always wanted to be in the rural area. Although I came to Nigeria in federal contract, Ilaro Federal Government College, then University of Lagos, then long ago where I met Dr. Adebowale. But I wanted my children to be raised in the rural area, because I know they cannot be culturally based in the city.
In the cities.
So I always look for the rural areas. And so that's why my children's husbands, Yoruba husbands, they are happy. They got village girls with American passports.
They've got village girls.
And they got it. They're real village girls. You won't know that they're Omodudu America. You know that they're Omo Yoruba, village Yoruba.
American citizens with African rural training, mentality, paradigm, behavior, and even ethos. And you can't have it better. I mean, having the best of both, two good worlds.
Then,
And that is the story that you carry in your heart, that you hold so gingerly, which in my own extrapolation now is a metaphor for what this center represents. This center is not preaching that we should remain the way we were pre-mingling with Western society time. This center is saying we should retain and advance the best of Africa's practices, Africa's ethos, and see how we can feature and fix it into modernity, into contemporary times. And you are living that ethos, the ethos of the African Heritage Research Center. You are living it even in your own personal life. How did you acquire the discipline and the focus to stay the course? At age 9, you took a decision. Age 11, sorry, you took a decision. And then by age 19, you saw an avenue to actualize it. And now, you're still keeping focus and staying the course. We don't find many of such disciplines around anymore in this age. Teach us or tell us, if you can, how did you acquire the discipline to stay focused?
well, actually, everything goes back to being oriented toward God. You know, praying, pray and ask God, what should I do? So if you follow God's direction for your life, there's no problem. Adebole is following God's direction. I'm following God's direction. So if you have problems, you say, God, I have a problem. What should I do?
And
so it's God
will
directed,
come.
trying to hook up to God's purpose for your life.
So you're advising people out there to be internally directed rather than externally directed.
Whatever religion they have to ask God.
For leading.
If it's Ifa, they have to consult God. If it's Islam, if it's...
Which religion do you practice?
Well, I practice the Christian Science, which is American religion. So our home is prayer all the time. Prayer. Okay. We don't go to doctors. We don't use medicine. We pray for healing like Jesus Christ.
She's a prayer warrior.
So for everything you consult God, and God takes care of you.
Wow. And how do you reconcile that with embedding yourself in nature?
Balogun says something about that. That you're closer to nature. How can you be in the village and you can't get closer? And that's when you have time to think about God. You know, in Lagos and Ibadan, I don't have time to think about that.
Yeah.
I don't have time to read my
Too
Bible.
many distractions.
But here, you can face God squarely. And so it's ideal, right next to God's own nature, beauty, everything, peace.
So nature enhanced spirituality has
Yes,
helped you
it
to
does,
stay
it
focused since then. Now, looking at the center, it's an organization that is very efficient and effective, that is behind all of what we've been able to see at the center. And you presiding over that organization. What are the challenges that you face in the course of discharging your responsibility?
The number one is, of course, financial, and that's our problem. And so we just have to appeal to people to assist us. They can start as small as donating books every year to us. If they have their old school books they don't want, we have some lawyers that said, oh, I want to get rid of these things, these magazines, as well as law books. Every year they say, look, come and take these. So start on that level. Give us books that
materials,
or you have newspapers. Even that's why we have a very large. Some people were shocked that we have newspapers. So
and magazines.
Yes, but newspapers, you can imagine. Some people go in the town, you can't see the back issues, the real something.
Because I also saw that there are areas that need repairs.
Yes, so the financial support is next. But book support, then financial support.
What about personnel issues?
Well,
you will be needing volunteers. Baba has talked about some volunteers,
we need
performance.
Volunteers. We've had some volunteers. Volunteers, fine. But we need money to pay our staff. That's basic. Or on a regular basis.
On a regular basis.
No, volunteers are welcome. You know, UI, sometimes they send 2 or 3 from library science. We love volunteers. Come. No, I'm facing you. I'm all right facing you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
no, volunteers. Anybody wants to volunteer, we will take care of you. Don't worry. Just come, volunteer. We will make sure Balogun will take care of you.
Balogun will take care of me. Now, the community.
The community.
What can you tell us about the community?
You see,
there are over 300 villages I gathered from Baba.
Culture is, as he stressed, the guardians of our culture, custodians of our culture are in the village, and they're the real Africans. They treat you well. They teach you. The reason why I don't know English up to now is because I wasn't in the village. Gong, gong, gong. If I was in the village, you see all these silly people, they will say, you can't speak Yoruba because I tell you 1,000 times to pronounce do, me, re, mi, and I can't do do, re, mi. But in the village, they will even tell me, they will imagine what I want to know, and they will tell me. So they help you with the language. So now I know I will get it now because I have willing people who want to teach me the language because they know I love it. They know I love it. So they're the most wonderful people in the world. As far as
But your childhood friends, I mean, even though we're here to talk about the library, but I'm just curious. I need to talk also about your person. Your childhood friends, don't they try to get in touch with you and try to bring you back
all
home?
this thing with the internet, you have no problem. You see, people were saying in the village, even if you go on Facebook or you go on Instagram, they will be saying, the Black Americans, I'm talking about Black Americans, they'll be saying there's nothing, you can't have internet in Africa, they don't have water, they don't have. I said, look, I'm browsing in my village with my iPad and with my phone. So
Wow.
don't tell me nonsense. I have 12 blogs and I'm browsing on them. And
You run 12 blogs.
Yes. So
And you run all the blogs from this village.
yes. So that's nonsense.
I saw your iPad that was being used to take pictures
Yes,
and
but
videos.
I use the phone the most, because the iPad can be expensive. The phone, I'm doing my blog. So it's because they're ignorant. They don't know that internet is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's a frequency that you may be vary, but then you can adapt to it.
Coming up. Where do you see this center 100 years from now? Doctor, the convener, the visionary, I beg your pardon, has told us about the desire and the effort to replicate this across different communities in Nigeria and hopefully on the African continent going forward. Where do you see this center as somebody who is deeply spiritual in 100 years from now? Yeah, do you know that your life is even projecting the message, the ethos, the philosophical focus of the center?
Yes.
Your
That's why I
life.
can't leave the center because we're the same. We're the same. His vision is the same as my vision, and anybody that wants to rise up in culture, their vision.
Because I can imagine senior citizens that you grew up with, you interfacing with them now on Instagram, on internet, and you're telling them, I'm interfacing with you from an African village.
They will say, wow,
That-
is it possible?
Yeah,
They say, I didn't know they don't have internet. They will always say they don't have. I said, because you don't know. You don't know.
because that's more believable than me writing articles or even going to America to tell them that in my village in Africa, these and these are available. Fantastic, and that's awesome actually. And I bet if you cut the videos of the interview and you send it across, that these are Africans
Well, I will send it everywhere.
recording
My goal
in
is
my
that
village.
all my Black Americans that can come back to Africa will come back. It
Wow.
won't be everybody, but it will be a lot of people who want to come back.
Even as senior citizens.
Especially because they get retirement. Most of them are waiting for retirement, so they will have a source of income. The biggest fear that the blacks have of coming to Africa is income. And the retirees, they have their social security. They send their social security check here.
Yeah.
They send it to Africa, wherever you are.
Wherever you are, they
So they'll
send
have
it there.
guaranteed income. So many of them are waiting for retirement to come because they're afraid that they can't set up business, maybe they can't get jobs, this and that.
But the government will take care of you even if you're in Africa. That's awesome.
Yes, if you get your social security, you've been working like a slave in America, you will get your check.
And I also understand that you've bagged the number of traditional titles
No, I haven't. There's only one that will happen on Sunday.
this Sunday.
Appreciating me for promoting Yoruba culture, and I so cherish
and
it.
language.
Tell us about it.
Well, now say the title for me.
Doctor will help us.
It's a Yeye Oloja Asa.
Oloja Asha, the marketer of culture. That's my own interpretation. I hope I'm right.
And
That's
tradition.
real-
That
and
is
real
it.
English, real
Globally,
English, and translated in English, they say ambassador of Yoruba culture.
global ambassador
Ambassador of
of Yoruba culture
That's a
and
different
tradition.
English.
Wow.
translation.
Wow. And I think that it's a feather that you deserve. It's a feather that fits very, very neatly. And it all shows that if you stay focused to your calling, all the rewards and accolades that you deserve will come knocking at your doorstep. I think that's one very critical message that we need to send out to our people out there.
She's been receiving congratulatory messages from all over the world
since
the announcement.
Since the announcement.
I announced it on the internet. Everybody's congratulating me.
Wow.
People I went to school with, people I got my Swahili name from in California. I said,
And she's also excited about it.
Yeah, and I'm excited for her as well.
She's going to demonstrate that she's mastering the language and the culture on that day.
When we
She said she's going to sing in Yoruba.
And when we arrived, the drummers were welcoming us with the drums. And I saw her dexterity.
Dancing.
Olúwa ni.
Olódùmarè ó ti ṣe.
Olódùmarè ló ṣe.
Orúmọlà ó ti ṣe. The only Orúmọlà helped me.
Yeye will sing a song to you.
Wow.
In Yoruba before you go. We'll join you.
We'll join you. And before we wrap things up, the secretary to the center is also available. I think she can walk into sets. Please walk into sets. Yes.
Balogun will introduce her.
Balogun, Ebawa, introduce
Yes,
her.
that's the energetic, charismatic secretary of the African Heritage Research Life and Cultural Center. She's been doing a wonderful job for the center since she joined us. She's something like a whiz kid, and she's Gbemisola Edun.
Gbemisola Edun. I saw a photograph where Yeye Akinimeli and Governor Aregbesola, and she was the one I saw in that picture.
Together.
I want to applaud and appreciate you also for all of the yeoman job that you're doing here. Sister Gbemisola, I'm trying to do a hybrid now. A hybrid. Arabin Gbemisola. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir.
And we appreciate you. Before we go, and we're going to celebrate the center on set, before we go, where do you see this center 100 years from now? Doctor, the convener, the visionary, I beg your pardon, has told us about the desire and the effort to replicate this across different communities in Nigeria and hopefully on the African continent going forward. Where do you see this center as somebody who is deeply spiritual in 100 years from now?
Well, because God is directing him and God has given him this assignment, and those of us working with him will back him up with prayers and work and pray. Not just prayer, but work and pray. It's going to be, you see, right now, 100,000 volumes for African studies. We're the largest in Africa.
Really?
We're the first. We're talking about African studies. We have more African books than UI. That's why the UI students, if they want to do African studies, they have to come to us.
Really?
Because we're talking about African books. You know, UI and all the universities in Africa, they have problems meeting the needs of Oyembo books, science books, law books. So the Africana is always small. They don't have money to have Africana. You know, they're the ones that should have big Africana.
Yes.
Even Nigeria Library, they should have big. But Adewale has made, we're the largest in Africa. We're the first rural-based. No parts of Africa have done African studies. You know, the North Africans are doing Islamic studies. We have some anthropology in South Africa. So we're the largest in Africa. But the largest African studies library is not in Africa. It's in US, 250,000.
Volume.
UK, University of London, 200,000. So our goal, 100 years, we're going to be, Adewale's dream is, if you want to study Africa, you should go to Africa. You should not go to Northwestern and US and UK. We're going to be the largest African studies library in the world. Everybody will have to come to African Heritage because we will have the largest collection.
Amen.
That's why all of you must.
All
these workers, I say, whoa. You have 2 books a year, 3 books a year. You say, I want to donate these 3 books to Africa. You have to be all a part of it. We can't do it alone. And Adewale has not done this alone. Everybody has done from the small to the big.
Big. and it's growing, and we can see the exponential
Yes.
growth that it has recorded. The largest collection in Nigeria
Africa.
presently,
And Africa.
and in Africa.
In Africa.
African studies, we stress African studies. You know, they will say largest library. It's not the largest library. It's the
in African
largest
studies.
African studies.
Largest library in African studies.
Yes.
But the vision is for it to be is the third in the world now. Even the third in the world is an accomplishment, I would
It
say,
is, but
by
it's because
any
Africans have not
stretch.
done their work now. Because can you imagine the largest is 250,000? That's small. You know it's small. The U.S. is small. We want millions.
Millions of volumes.
You know, so that's our goal.
That's the
We
kind
will
of
have it
person
in
I
100
am
years.
too, by God's grace.
And God
By
is
God's
behind
grace.
us, so there's nothing impossible for God.
Yes, yes, and I want to say that that's quite motivational. It's quite inspiring for me, and very challenging. Very, very
You have to be
challenging.
part of it. You have to be part of
He's
it.
I'm
already
already
part
part
of it. This is not his first time of coming here.
No, that's not it. You have to be more.
But
part of
but
it.
I'm going to
You
have to do more.
You have to do more.
I'm going to have
give
to do
books,
more.
And you have to find people to give money.
Yeah.
You can't just be looking and saying that's nice. You too. Bring your books. Bring your 2 books every year. You know, right? If all of you give something every year, books. We'll have some more new books. Abby.
Yes, yes. And I like the fact that though this is the third in the world in terms of African studies, collection of books and volumes and materials, but I like the fact that the ambition is to surpass the second and the first and grow to be the biggest and the best
And the
and the
best.
most resourceful on the continent. Arabirin Gbemisola,
Thank you.
we appreciate you. Yeye, Olade,
She wants to
Yeah.
sing to you.
yeah, will sing us out on the program today. And you have said that the visionaire is the Balogun Center, Dr.
You know, he
Adebayo.
has 5 teaching titles. Isn't that 5?
We know.
Okay, but you didn't mention it. Did you mention it?
No.
No, because I know he doesn't really.
He doesn't want to hear about
he's
that.
not. He's too modest.
5 teaching titles. And the last one, just tell me what it is. Balogun. I shall say the whole thing. No, I'm talking about
Agbashaga.
Balogun right
Oh,
now because
okay.
it's Yoruba land. It's the
Yes.
whole Yoruba land.
Balogun Agbashaga.
Balogun
Of
Agbashaga
Yoruba
of
land.
Yoruba land.
Gbogbo ẹ̀.
Gbogbo Yoruba. Well, we can go on and on. Unfortunately, time is not our best friend. And Yeye Akilemali,
Yeah.
Iya Mi, Olade, I appreciate you for the good work you're doing here. The good Lord will continue to energize you
I say what?
and enable
I say
you,
what?
and will continue to give you all the resources you
I say
require
what? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
to chart the center forward more and more. When we come back again, we will have cause to identify new things to celebrate and applaud here by the grace of the Almighty God. Arabirin Gbemisola, we thank you as well also for showing face on the program. And Dr. Bayo Adebowale, the visionary and founder of the Africa Heritage Research and Cultural Center here in Adeyupo, a rural setting in southwest Nigeria. I thank you for making our time of your busy schedule to be on the program.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
And that will be all on the program today. Thank you so very much for being there with us. Until next time, bye for now.